Is Bitcoin's price being manipulated? Well, we're going to take a look at that today here on the charts. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is, it's March 6th, 2023. It has been a few days since I have done a recording. My apologies. I had some things to take care of. So let's jump right into it, though. What you see here in front of you on the chart is the Bitcoin spot price chart for Coinbase. And we are going to take a look at where we are on these EMAs. We have an orange 9 exponential, a yellow 21, and a white 200. So pretty easy to see that we have, crossed our 9 underneath of the 21 here, with the generalized area of interest to the downside here being the 200 EMA. So above there, I do think things look okay. That's about the 21,800 region. But more importantly, like what's going on? We've just been hanging out, kind of going sideways. Well, part of that actually has to do rather with the weekend price action. We did see a few pumps up and a few pumps to the downside, or a few dumps to the downside, I should say rather, and kind of just going sideways in a line chart. And what this is indicative of is some TWAP buying and selling, and that is time weighted average price. And it's usually the bigger players trying to hold price within a zone. We do have some important economic things coming up. I believe that Jerome Powell is going to be speaking to Congress or testifying in front of Congress tomorrow. And then we've also got, yes, that's going to be tomorrow. And then we've got his continued testimony, and then we have the job openings. So, really the labor market and Powell speaking. And then next week, we have unemployment. So it's going to be fairly interesting running into that stuff. Excuse me while I adjust in my chair. I think you can actually hear that on the microphone. I got it mixed up pretty high here, and so realistically, it's about determining, when price breaks here on something like the 4-hour is, in my best estimate, going to determine which direction we head in some of the longer term time frames. This can be pretty easy to mark up. This is a fairly easy range. So we've got to the downside our 21,988, so basically $22,000, and then to the upside here 22,650 or so. In this case, like 654 here on Coinbase. So being below the 200 here, which is denoted by my indicator here that is printing the initial break below the 200 with the 9 exponential, and then trend following through with the 21 breaking down, printing these red diamonds here. So what that is, indicating is that the trend, of course, is fully to the downside here, where we were a bit trendless, as we were in mean reversion, which when there are no diamonds printing up here at the highs, we had our green diamonds printing, denoting that the 9 was over the 21 while also being above the 200. So the trend was to the upside. We then went trendless and mean reverted back to the 200 EMA. Kind of messed around, tried to regain trend to the upside here, and ultimately lost it. The trend broke, and now we have a trend to the downside. So, realistically, living below the 22,864 here, the 200 EMA on the 4-hour, is probably not going to bode well for the bulls. Although a range break to the upside, would start to expand Bollinger Bands and Bollinger Band percentage percentage width, in this case BBWP, and this would beget the possibility that we could see a breakout to the upside. It's just a matter of can it sustain close over close above the 200, and then begin to shift that trend with the 9 first popping up over the 200 and then following through with the 21 EMA to establish a full trend to the upside here. Now, of course, there's still a lot of resistance up here. When looking at a 4-hour chart, we've got $23,000. I would say that really anything below there on a daily close is going to favor the bears. Above $23,000 on a daily close, I think that bulls can take things over and bring things back onto the top side of the range here, up around the highs, $24,000-$25,000, and then we kind of evaluate what happens from there. When you see the wicks like this, it's really the bigger players in this game holding price in a specific zone until they see what they want to see to, turn price in a particular direction towards, the pools of liquidity, either to the upside or the downside. So, and that's going to be probably not happening until we see what's going on with Jay Powell's testimony, and then we've got the labor market statistics going on here. We're probably going to see this move begin soon, though, as denoted by the BBWP here, kind of riding the floor on the downside here. So volatility being very, very low. What does that mean? Well, that means that in this case, we'll turn off this set. The indicator has multiple settings. I just had 2 here so that I could switch easily for the video. But in this case, that does mean that the Bollinger Bands are contracted pretty much as far as they can go. They really squeezed back here, but here on the 4-hour, we can see basically the same stuff. Break above the high, we're going to go test higher. That would be get expansion to the upside here, right? So, and I think I actually deleted those lines, but basically break above this high. We'll get expansion to the upside, and trend outside of the first, second, and third standard upper bull bands here, and a break to the downside would do the same. So we would actually be more established in a Bollinger Band expansion to the downside in this case, if we were to head down and test around that $22,000. Now, to bring this back to the daily, we still have the low over here. That is this guy here at 21,366. That I believe, actually no, it might not have been that. No, this is an untested daily low. So we've got 2 untested daily lows there, and we can actually check that by utilizing the fixed range volume utility here. I'm just going to take the upper range here, starting from the candle that established this high, or I should say this consolidation high before we got to the higher high, incorporating the low here, and then the higher high after. And we'll make sure that the settings are to, let's go ahead and make sure, extend right, so we can grab the whole range here. So we've got our value area low here. If that is lost, we're going to go test this low, and then of course we have the highs and lows of this consolidation down there. The more important area coming in right around that 21,200 to 21,500, which would be testing this high and this low. There's also the gap in volume here. Dig down any further, we're going to head down towards that $20,000 area, between 20,000, 20,500 being the generalized target to the downside there. Now, we can also see when looking at price here that if we throw on session volume profiles here, we can take a look at the volume profiles per session or daily session. And we'll flip back to the 4-hour. And let's adjust this a little bit to get some of the data that we need out of it. We're going to extend the point of control, the value area highs, and the value area lows. Now, this being the 4-hour, you can see all of the different Uh, well, it didn't actually pick up the value area lows and highs here. So let's see if maybe we switch time frames and come back to it. Well, I guess not. Either way, the points of control are going to be important in these areas. More important, I believe, in these areas than not. And you can see based on the daily sessions that are blinking on and off, unfortunately here, that we have the point of control down here coming in at in the consolidation high, coming in at $21,000. We have another point of control or daily point of control that has been untested down at 20,800. So really below there is when we would see a test down to the actual range lows here. So, a lot of this is kind of up in the air until we get some clarity on market direction. Most likely when, market opens tomorrow, we kind of see what's going on with Jay Powell and his testimony. And then some of the economic data, I think, will be the main driver after that. But as it stands right now, the longer the Bitcoin goes sideways here and does not break down in this area, the more likely it is to test back to the upside. And thus, if it would regain, that $23,000 on a daily close, especially, I believe that, not just testing this wick high intraday there at 22,654, but actually getting a closure above there and then above the first standard deviation to the downside here, the lower first standard deviation of the Bollinger Band. I do think that would be get a test, further up, get a daily closure on some of those, would also above $23,000 would fulfill some of the regaining of the lows criteria that I have for support and resistance here and on the 4 hour, which then would be get, a run a little bit further up, 23,140 to test those lows. Then we've got the highs coming in at around 23,550. Now, the reason I'm calling that out is because you can see that the 20 simple on the daily, which is the basis of the Bollinger Bands here, is 23,500. So testing in and around there would be the next upside area that I would want to see tested should we see an upside move and a daily closure above $23,000. And I believe that that if that area is regained, we go up further, we test a little bit higher there at the first standard deviation to the upside or in and around there. It's going to be difficult to tell in some of the lower term timeframes unless we see things kind of slice through the upper $23,000 area. But I do think overall it would start to favor a move up towards around 24,000 to 24,300, which is right around the wick highs over here of that second high that was put in on the way up here in this range. So, those are the main things that I'm going to be looking out for, and I suggest you look out for as we come into some of these more important, kind of outside Bitcoin market economic goings-ons, but in this case, they are obviously relevant as the market kind of waits. And when we look at Stoke, we can see it is pointed down on the daily here and would turn up on any closure above, guess what? $23,000. That would beget a pivot back to the upside, at least initially. That would give the K over the D cross. Initially, we'd need to see a close over close to actually turn the Stoke fully up, both the K and the D read. Now, you don't need, as I've said many times, you don't need an indicator like this. This is a paid indicator from KVDB, which is an indicator that can be obtained at crownscrypto.net or crowntrading.net, or I forget what the actual app is. You can look it up though, just Google it or look at Crown's homepage on YouTube, and you can find a link to the store where they do sell this. He hosts it there, so you don't need it though. And that is, you can clearly, just set a regular RSI. And I've said this a few times, but I've gotten some more questions about it. But basically, all you need to do is go into, any RSI indicator. And, the criteria is going to be when the K crosses over the D read, you want to see close over close to actually initiate that momentum pivot. So the Stoke, I said RSI, and this is a Stoke. Just take any regular Stoke here and not a Stoke RSI, and just change the settings to be a 6-3. So 14 length, 6 K smoothing, 3D smoothing. And then you've got the same exact look. You just don't have some of the extra bells and whistles, such as the printed potential momentum pivot, stuff like that. But and a reminder, I'm not I don't benefit from telling you about the paid indicators or anything like that. I'm not sponsored. I have no affiliation other than being a very big fan of the work that they do over there. So. But I do want to mention that there is a confluence there at that $23,000. And, that's the area that we can see from a technical point of view, support and resistance in terms of overhead resistance that would need to be regained, at least for me. And we can see for also a momentum pivot, which would, by the way, put in a low. So that's the other criteria. And really any closure above that 22,655 is going to put in a low. And when we look at our RSI, the actual RSI this time, we can see that there is a drive of hidden bullish divergence, but it has yet to play out because we need that closure above that 22,650 or so. If we did see that, that would initiate targets to somewhere around the SMA here, which is a 12 SMA, to around the midline, which the midline's coming in, guess where? $23,000. The SMA is sitting just below there at 22,955. So we see that there's a lot of confluences all across the board that if things were to play out to the upside, $23,000 is the place that it would happen from a daily closing perspective. Now, when looking at the weekly that just opened, we can see that we have many drives of hidden bearish divergence and then this one initial drive of regular bearish divergence with a target down to what was the midline and what is still the midline there at 21,630. Now, we have actually hit that initial downside target on last week's candle at around that 21,988. It actually went quite a bit deeper on some other exchanges, particularly derivative exchanges. So we've already basically played out the initial portion of that move. And from the perspective of EMAs, the next target to the downside would be, we tapped on the 9 exponential. It would be breaking below, the range lows of the last week's wick low and going down and testing around that area at 21,400, 21,300, 21,400 area where the 21 EMA is. That would be the next move to look for if we did break down. So, and it falls right in line with our support and resistance that we were just looking at. So the weekly Stoke is also pointed down to the downside here. I don't really think that that's as much of a... I do not believe that that is as big a deal as what we're potentially going to see on the daily, and that's either continuation to the downside from a momentum perspective by breaking down below the lows, or a reversal from the daily perspective by putting in a low. So those are the major areas to look out for. And yes, I do think that price is being manipulated by the bigger players. To answer that question again, I do think that they are TWAPing price. And if you're interested in what TWAPing price is, you can always look it up on your exchange. In fact, you can trade with a TWAP. We can use neobutane's TWAP here just by typing TWAP in. If it's, is it going to load here? Yes. And we can see that TWAPs on the daily are kind of all over the place. They're usually for lower term timeframes here. And you can see that the TWAP price, let's actually make that a little bit more visible here. It's based on the daily. And see that teal line that just going sideways once price got down here. It's just orders being set to TWAP for, short and long, and keeping price range bound until direction is determined or one side gets overwhelmed by the other. So yes, it is being manipulated into this BART style range. And to be quite honest, just anecdotally, most BART patterns end up, if they're to the downside, they end up, elevatoring right back up. Usually if they're to the upside, they elevate it right back down, creating your, in this case, an inverted Bart-Simpson and then your regular Bart-Simpson pattern. So that's going to do it for me today. I don't really have too much more to say. The indicators that you see me using are package indicators that I will be releasing for free for everyone. But I am not yet done with them. They have a lot of different features here. So this is just something that I put together so I can have a single indicator with many different options without having to, stack the chart full of indicators, even though I stacked it up with these two here. If you are interested in this, I will be releasing it publicly very soon for those of you that are helping me test it out. Thank you. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, make sure to ask. And very soon what this is going to be integrating is strategy. And it's going to be my personal Bollinger Band and BBWP strategy built into the indicator with long and short signals with a bunch of filters that you can add to optimize those signals and then be able to back test them in the strategy tester pane, which is not active right now because this is the shared version, the private shared version right now. This will be released publicly. So if you like customizable Bollinger Bands where you can set how many standard deviations you got, change all the colors in the backgrounds. I have signal shapes in here. That is denoted by breaking below the second standard deviation and the third standard deviation. If we break and close below the third standard deviation, you get on the lower side or the downside here, you can see you get the red triangle and purple dot, denoting that we're not only below the second standard deviation, but we're below the third standard deviation. And to the upside, you get a red triangle and a purple dot, denoting that we are above the second and third. When we're just in between the second and third, you get purple dots, just as an extra visual aid for where we are in the Bollinger Bands, which also allows you to turn off the Bollinger Bands to clean up your chart if you like. So you can just get rid of all of this stuff. And I'm going to make this easier to check and uncheck all these and rearrange this list, all that good stuff. But basically, you can just have the signals and no Bollinger Bands, and by this signal where price is based on the Bollinger Band, or where price is closing in the Bollinger Bands. In this case, closing below the second standard deviation here and here, closing above here, below the third standard deviation and second standard deviation, obviously here, and then up above the third standard deviation. So third standard deviation, second standard, third standard. And you don't need any of the Bollinger Bands on your chart to understand that. And then you compare it with different indicators like BBWP, which is a free caretaker indicator. It's an open source script that you can use that is a little bit better than just using Bollinger Band percent or Bollinger Band width and stuff like that if you are trading Bollinger Bands. So with all of that being said, I do appreciate you watching. If you could like and subscribe, that would be very, very helpful. And share the video with people that you think might find this information useful. So I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. And with all of that being said, Landy out.